brings us to the question and answer period. And I think Stan is going to kick it off with the first question.
I'd like, is that on? Okay. Yes. I'd like to remind everybody that this is a forum that is addressing business and economic issues, and those specifically. The first question.
These are particularly difficult times for many businesses in the community. The general economic situation in the world, changing business models with respect to the internet and consumer shopping preferences, and pressures on lab budgets and projects are all having an effect on local businesses, whether they be retailers, professional and technical services companies, hospitality businesses, service providers of all types, or nonprofits. Here's the question. What can and should the county government be working on to be supportive of our businesses in this difficult environment?
Steve, you're going to lead this one off for us.
So what can the county government be working on in this environment?
Be supportive.
To be supportive of businesses?
Right.
Okay, well I've got a litany.
Go for it.
Signage regulations, service permits, local preference ordinance, low rent industrial with office trailers. Like that one, Andy. Downtown pedestrian safety, code enforcement, flexible creative zoning land use, mixed usage opportunities, county branding, work internships for youth, internet access, broadband. Oh, and this is controversial, okay? If you want help on taxes, maybe we should roll back or put some kind of ceiling on property valuation.
Thank you, Steve. Kristen?
You know, first of all, I agree with almost that whole list. So I think there are a lot of things like that we can do in terms of our regulations and our zoning and fixing the sign code. I absolutely, you know, when I went around and talked to the businesses, I was a little startled to find how many of them said to me, you know, the county buys a lot of X and we sell that and they never buy it here. So I do think that that is an important thing. But to be really honest, I think that the Trinity site project, right now we spent 80% of our money off the hill. So that alone is going to help us, once it finally gets here, to help our local businesses. And when, you know, both the families that own the CB Fox store and the Metzger store are in favor of it because they know once we spend locally, we'll spend more money locally up here. So the bigger question is, what are going to be, in addition to the zoning and the regulation and the things that we are directly in control of, there are going to be other partnership opportunities that come before us, and it's going to be important which ones we decide to partner with or invest in or allow to have happen or to invest in the infrastructure so that those projects can go forward. I think that, you know, a lot of the ones that we talked about are important, but the big question is we're not really going to have all of the answers right in front of us, and we're going to have to be wise about which ones we choose and which ones are really going to help the local businesses, help the economy to diversify, help the local families and the people who are here to have their needs met in this town. I know there's somewhat of a myth that we just choose to leave all the time, and really I think we're forced to leave a lot of the time. Sometimes we choose it, but it would be wonderful when we finally can actually get our needs and maintain our households and enjoy ourselves and spend our off time up here as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. Michael, you're next.
I think we can all agree that there's a wide array of things that the county can and should be doing. One of the things I think is lobbying. That's something that you know, the county itself can't change certain things, but as a county councilor, part of your responsibility is lobbying to our state government and even the federal government. Small things like, one of the things that I would like to see happen, which as a county councilor, I wouldn't have any ability to change, but is looking at potentially, the mail order businesses, why aren't they paying gross receipts tax? If not here, where they're based, to help create a more equitable relationship where, our local businesses can then compete against that. One of the things I think we can do locally, once again, is updating the zoning code. I'm going to say it over and over again. I think there's some great ways that we can incentivize through our zoning, a lowering of rental rates. I know a lot of businesses have complained about the really high rents for commercial space in this town. And that's something I think the county can do to help make it easier for small businesses to actually pay their bills. I know a lot of local businesses have complained that the rents are real high here. Maybe $21 per square foot when you compare to Santa Fe, and it's a third of that. So I think we need to find creative ways to incentivize, perhaps through the zoning or other means of making it easier for small businesses to stay afloat here in town.
Thank you, Mark. Pete, you're up next.
The role of the lab in our national security is not going to disappear. The lab budgets go up and down, sometimes severely, as we've noticed in the past year. There's a lot of scientific and engineering talent here, and some of them come up with creative new businesses. They've often taken their growing businesses to less expensive locations. If we can make it possible for some of those people to grow their businesses here, Los Alamos will be less dependent on the single budget of the National Laboratory. How do we do that? We find a way for beginning startups to get very cheap space, including helping projects like the Hive offer space and services they need. Once a startup company is beginning to grow, we need to continue supportive projects like the New Mexico Consortium. If cheaper space is still necessary and we can't incentivize the private sector to provide it, we can get some county or lab transportables and set them up on county space and offer that space cheaply to start-up businesses. As businesses grow, we need to make sure we're working to make our town a nicer community and keep our schools and UNMLA as good as they can be so that their workers will want to continue to live here. The Ottawee bookstore may have been a victim of internet competition for bookstores, but it served as a museum store and an important tourist attraction that offered science and local books and items that everybody in this town appreciated. It helped promote our town. I'm looking into getting the lab and or the county to help keep some kind of a museum store open there for the benefit of our whole community.
Thanks, Pete. Vince, you're up next.
Our small businesses pay GRT tax to the county. And I feel one of the most important things that we can do as a county council is avoid an increase in the GRT tax rate in Los Alamos County. And in addition, our local businesses also spend for utilities. And that's why, as county councilor, I work with other councilors, and we were able to avoid a 10% increase in the electric utility rate. These are the kinds of things that we have to focus on so that local government is not a burden and an obstacle for businesses. In addition, we have many businesses in our community that are not centrally located in the downtown. I think we have to afford them the opportunity to be able to advertise for their business off of their property, off-site advertising. And not only would I favor that as off-site in the public domain, but I think if businesses want to advertise on private property, they should be allowed to do so. And so we have to make some changes to our sign code to bring this about. And finally, as we've seen over the last few years, when road construction projects take place, there can be an impact on local businesses. And I feel we have to work with businesses and plan our road work so that it lessens the impact and the disruption to businesses when their patrons have to be diverted because of road construction. And the best example are the businesses near the old Conoco gas station on Arkansas Street, which almost went out of business during a prolonged period of time when road construction was taking place on Diamond Drive. We cannot repeat that in the future. Our businesses are having hard enough time as it is, and we can't make it more difficult for them by diverting traffic away.
Thank you, Vince. Mark, you want to wrap this up?
Yes, I would like to wrap it up. When I read this question, I really thought the end of it was going to be how can we help our community citizens and businesses. So I think with changing things at the laboratory, let me be a bit of a realist. If laboratory budget drops 10%, that's a lot of money. That's $200 million up to. So, you know, it's going to be tough for this county to make up $200 million. So we're going to have to really work hard at our efforts to try to diversify, but we're going to have to really concentrate on how can we partner with the laboratory to make sure that we're sustainable as a town here while we work on these things. In keeping with that, if laboratory changes like that, we as county members are going to have to focus on enabling and supporting and maintaining our vital services. It's going to come down to those kind of things like maintaining fire and hospital and police and all those kind of things. So let me talk about that first. You want to make sure that the county is working and sustainable and safe as we get started. And then we can focus on things that align with what we're good at as a town. Well, what we're good at is we have, you know, one of the premier science laboratories in the nation right up there, right? So we're obviously good at high tech and engineering. So if we can really work with tech transfer and we can do things to help entrepreneurs here in Los Alamos to be successful and stay here and do what our private-public partnerships can do to make that work, that'd be great because we're pretty good at that kind of thing. So the county should be enabling that. Also, the setting. Pete mentioned tourism. That'd be something that we would really be working on. We should focus on attracting people to this lovely place to be. Even though the fire looks like it burned half of it down, it's getting prettier all the time. So, you know, it'll come back and we'll work on that. I'm glad Michael talked about lobbying. I mentioned that at a student government council meeting we had here just a couple of days ago. I talked about we have to lobby with our state representatives and our state elected officials to try to help those things that makes New Mexico a non-business friendly state and see if we can affect change in those areas and lobby those things to try to help Los Alamos because it'll help everybody, including us. So that's something as a county we can do collectively.